On the inside, that's right.
Everyone to DSM's Black Art Matter series. We're here today with Nik Blocker, who is a Dallas-based actor, dancer, and choreographer, and is the marketing and development assistant at Theater Arlington. Welcome, Nik.
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
Well, good. Can't complain.
Perfect. So there we go.
So we're going to jump right in here with our first question, which is always the title of the series is called Black Art Matters. What does Black identity mean to and for you?
Ooh, it's a big question. I think it's just the meaning of Black identity is just having an awareness of who you are, and just being able to live in that. It's especially nowadays. It's a little daunting to think, who am I, and what defines me. But I think for me, it's just an ongoing search of, is this really who I am?
Yeah.
Versus this is how people see me. I do say I am a Black man, but it is not just my identity. I'm not just a Black man. So I find that to be a definition, just an awareness of who you are and finding out who you are.
So that idea of awareness has come up quite a bit in several interviews we've done in this series. Can you share a little bit about when you began to search for that awareness, or when the awareness began for you, what that journey looked like?
Actually, it's pretty recent.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of those things like you're born and, you have a realization of who you are, once you realize there's someone looking back at you in a mirror,
right?
And it is you. But, that started fairly recently. I think I auditioned for a show for a theater. I don't know if I can say the theater.
Yeah, feel free.
I did Of Mice and Men at Firehouse Theater. And I think that was probably one of the biggest, hey, you're a Black guy. I got to play the role of Crooks, which was for me a bucket list role. It was something I aspired to do when I was older. It's a very small role, but it's a huge role. And it's to be able to do that at the age of 26 and 27. I was like, whoa.
Right.
I mean, I did something right. But taking on that responsibility of that role, I had to sit back and go, okay, this guy in that time, it was that he is a Black man.
Right.
So how am I going to, deal with that? And then, taking a realization of myself and bringing myself to that, that's when I really started to delve into dealing with identity.
Right.
So I think that's when it started, and that was only like a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Okay.
And maybe not even that much, but I think that was my first real sense of being, a Black man and dealing with that.
Yeah. So you are actually a transplant to Dallas.
Yes.
Can you talk about the differences of when it comes to this topic of racial identity between, where you came from and then coming into the Dallas area, and what the similarities or differences are between the two places?
Answering that question would be fun for me because a topic of racial identity or anything of the like has been fun to kind of discuss in my own mind with myself, because it really wasn't a huge deal to me at that time where I was. I grew up in a smaller town, 96, South Carolina. It is real. But there was a small population of Black people, and it was predominantly white, but there were never any moments that I was like, oh, I'm a Black guy. I was just a kid.
Right.
Everybody knew everybody. Everyone was at the Friday night football game. So just being myself was just who I was, But for me personally, there hasn't been much difference.
Okay.
I've been very lucky to have found myself in communities and around people that respect me for me. And, that they do see that I'm a Black man, but they take me as a man and as an adult, So I think I've been lucky in that. but also in that luck, it's it's a double-edged sword. I have to find that that constant train of going. Yes, you are respected and appreciated as you, but is it just you?
Right.
So there's a constant voice in the back of my head going, always check yourself, and make sure that you are being appreciated for who you are. So, and it's wild going from South Carolina to Texas. A lot of people might say it's not that different, but I've found out it's different. But for me personally, it hasn't been that drastically different. It's kind of been the same climate, moving from there to here.
Yeah. So the journey of awareness for you, you mentioned, is pretty recent. So when it comes to your kind of creative journey as an artist and as a Black artist, growing up, did identity play any role in the creation or wanting to create art, or was it purely just this inspiration you had as just an artist?
In terms of artistic inspiration, I got that pretty late in life.
Okay.
I started out playing sports, park and rec, pee-wee football, basketball, things like that. And then 6th grade, I started off in band. I got a music way into the arts. But so that was kind of the first bit of inspiration, looking at Black musicians and being inspired by them, but also realizing that I'm doing that now.
Right.
But in terms of myself creatively being an artistic person, that kind of came later in high school when I did drama for the first time in 11th grade. So pretty late. But I was like, oh man, this is something.
Yeah.
And then, it was really just about having that inspiration of being a performer. But it wasn't until probably I moved here 5 years ago and I got the opportunity to be a theater artist in a Title I school and to be that person that kids see. Right. I'm looking back at kids that look like me. And, of course, we know we want to see people that look like us.
Yes.
But for me to be in that position, but it's flipped.
Yeah.
I now see the kids that I was that kid, So it was almost kind of scary, but I felt like I had a responsibility to, being a Black artist,
right?
Being a man, being a Black guy, I felt like I had a responsibility to bring that comfort, that ease, that inspiration to kids.
Yeah.
So I think that's how that leads me into being artistic and being a person of color,
right? And
letting my inspiration be someone else's inspiration.
Yeah. I want to talk about that responsibility for a bit because it's such an interesting topic. Is there a heaviness to that you carry because you feel that responsibility? And if so, what does that mental or emotional toll look like for you for carrying that responsibility?
Yeah. Before you even talk about being, a Black man, it's being able to discuss and, bring the theater aspect of it down to a level of 4th graders and 5th graders to where they can be inspired and understand. That alone is a task, So
Right.
I respect any teacher or anything, that does that on any level. But that alone was enough to make me go, okay, this is something big. And once I started to realize, the teacher that I worked with really did a fantastic job of giving me feedback and letting me know that the kids do appreciate me. They see me, that they hear me, they love me. And to hear that, I'm like, okay, it's not just theater. I think they see something in me, or see something of me
right.
that they see, that they agree with, or they can what's the word I'm looking for? They can connect with.
Right.
So I think that helped lead me into saying, okay, let's try. Let's just be you. They love you for being you. So, it is a heaviness, but it's also a lightness because I know that they love me for me and not just for me being like, they're not going to say this Black guy came to teach us theater. Right. They're going to say Mr. Nick came and taught us theater. So I think that, it was a middleman.
Right.
There were some heavy days to where, I have to explain why we do this or why, but most of the time it started off heavy, but it came to be a lighter type of a thing.
Yeah.
So
our sector has a long history of, for lack of a better word, tokenizing Black actors, where February comes along and then every theater does a quote unquote Black show. And it's like, here's your time, right?
Yeah.
In your work as a theater artist, how are you managing the fact that yes, you're a Black artist and you're a Black actor, but you're also an actor who can play a multitude of roles, whether they be historically Black roles or not. What does that look like for you in this city, in this sector?
Oh man. It's
I know it's a
been-
loaded question I
yeah,
threw at you.
Oh, no. It makes me think. With my training and education, it's been, I've been aware that I've been Black and things like that. But I've been able to do shows and productions where being Black isn't a specification. You don't have to be. It's about playing the role. So being in a community that, in truth, it is a good thing that they're doing shows. But I find it almost enjoyingly frustrating because again, I do appreciate that they are doing that, but it's kind of just like, don't just locate it to just February,
Right?
Like, let it just be. And that being an actor, it's like, I don't know, I think it goes back to frustrating because it's almost like this is my one chance.
Yeah.
Because DFW is a fantastic training ground for not just theater, but delegating things like this and deciding, it's like, how hard am I going to go for this theater or this show?
Right.
Because are they just looking to fill the Black role, or
Right.
are they going to look at it as just me? So like I said, I think it's enjoying and frustrating at the same time. It's an enjoyable thing and it's frustrating. Yeah.
And bouncing off of that, just going into experiences in the casting room, right, and the audition process. Have you found that you have to either work harder to stand out more, or once you're in front of the director doing a cold read or in a callback, work even more to be like, hey, yeah, I'm Black, but I'm also a great actor.
Right. Yes and no. I've had some wild experiences auditioning for shows in DFW, but it's almost I don't know. I don't think I want to say that. I will say, I don't think that I have had just me as a performer. I kind of know the shows that I want to go for, and I think that I've had more feeling of trying in shows that are predominantly Black, because most of the time it's not necessarily you see another Black person behind the table,
Right.
So that's when I feel like I really have to try even harder, to prove myself,
Right.
But in terms of just auditioning and the stress of it all, I think I've again been lucky enough to not have to, but I think that just comes down to the shows that I auditioned for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say there was one show, I don't know what to say, but that I auditioned for that was predominantly Black, and two actually. It's kind of the same situation, but I found myself, I did my performance, and I was calm, cool, and collected, and they go, okay, can you sing another song? And I was like, yeah, cool. It kind of throws you off your rocker. And one of these auditions, I think I did 4 songs. And I was just like,
Wow.
what do I have to do? Like,
It's a little unheard of in the audition process. Yeah.
It was, I feel like I should be a little more specific in that audition, but it was that that was for an African-American director. But I was just like, oh my gosh, what all do you need to see? There are only so many songs in my book, But I do feel, I felt an opposition of that, having to try a little harder for Black directors.
Right.
But with that also said, there is a silenced voice of, yes, you have to go in and be you, and you have to try, but you have to even just look like you are trying. Like you do want to appease these
Right.
people, because you do want to be seen as a performer and not just a Black performer.
Right.
So
I want to talk about the behind the table aspect a little bit, because not only you're an actor, but you also work in the arts administration side of things too.
do, yeah.
When it comes to those who are sitting behind the table, be it director, stage manager, choreographer, music director, et cetera, in your experience, do you think that there's an issue, that Dallas has an issue with who those people are and what they look like? And maybe I should rephrase that of not who they are, but simply what they look like.
Right.
And are there enough Black creatives behind the table, in your opinion, in Dallas?
in my opinion, it isn't just for Dallas, but I've been lucky enough to audition for a few different places, and I think the same thing. I do think that there is a larger lack of color behind the table, but in terms of, I don't know, it's kind of one of those things of, I found that it's a nice, close, tight-knit community. So you find, you become good friends with this other director, and they know this other person. So it's more about bringing a team. So I think that it's not on purpose.
Okay.
It just so happens to be that this connection is that connection, and they want this team. So, which on the flip side is like, I can understand that, but at the same time, it would be nice to see,
opening up,
and from every perspective. I don't think that there's been one show where I've had a plethora of African American people behind the table, and if I have, there hasn't been I've had one director that's African American, which is I'm not saying I have a lengthy resume, but I have a nice sized resume, and that's wild to hear. Yeah, it says something. Yeah. So it does. It makes me feel a little, not uncomfortable, but it's like, oh man, it's like that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
For your company and for the show and everything. But,
and then as an arts administrator, and that side of your role, right?
Oh yeah.
Do you feel any type of responsibility to help progress the opportunities that Black artists and people of color have to be on the other side of the table?
I totally do. Totally do. It sounds kind of funny, but having been on that side of the table, I understand the bringing in a friend or bringing in a director that you've worked with before, because that's something that I would want to do.
Right.
But I do feel a responsibility of bringing, even if it's just shooting a text to say, hey, I'm working on this show, I would love for you to come audition. Or, just encouraging other actors to say, yeah, I know that you don't see a lot of African American people at that theater, or, you don't see a lot of African American people in this show, but that doesn't, you won't know until you try.
Right.
So I do feel that weight and responsibility, but it's a hard role to be, because you don't want to push too much.
Right.
Because then it just seems like you're an addict if you're just Black people on that side. That's not what it is. So, but I do feel a responsibility. I do.
And does that responsibility take any, similar to what the responsibility we talked about of you in the classroom, does that responsibility take a toll on you as an individual as well? Of, I really got to change this sector.
Yeah.
I really got to push something forward.
That's where it kind of, it does, but it's kind of one of those things that's like, you don't want to be the only conductor on the train.
Right.
You don't want to be the only one pushing. So you kind of have to, push 50 and then be for yourself for 50. So I find that I've been able to even that out of that specific heaviness of having the responsibility of pushing for more African American appearance in the theater. So
two-pronged question for you that I have here in regards to support of you and your craft. The first one being, growing up and even now, personally, do you have the support system in place, or do you wish there was more support that you had personally as a Black artist to help you in this sector? And then going off of that, do you believe the sector as a whole provides enough support for Black artists, period?
Personally, and very personally, I've been lucky to have a very supportive group of family, friends, mentors, colleagues that really urge me to continue to push, not just as a performer, but standing in my being a Black performer. Especially now, of course, in the climate of everything, they've been pushing before, but they're really pushing. They're like, now you have to have a voice, really search for that voice and use it. So I've been lucky in that fact. And that it's not just, other Black artists or colleagues, and it's people of all colors. And which was weird at first to hear, people that aren't Black say, you're Black, not use it, but you have to, be able to let it help you.
Right.
But in terms of an industry and on a larger scale, I feel that there is a support, but I don't feel like it is the support that is needed.
Right.
I feel like it can be astronomically larger, you know?
Yeah.
But, and especially in terms of inspiration and just opportunity. But, you know, because there are artists out there, you have to search for them.
Right.
And I think that's part of the problem. You know, you shouldn't have to search. You should just be able to go, you know, in any field, just search in, you know, Broadway shows and not just, you know, white actors or, you know, it should be a color of actors, you know, and you should be able to go, okay, versus let me sit and scroll.
Right.
And, you know, but I do think that there is support, just not enough.
Right.
And what that looks like in the future or how we get to that, it's a trail that we have to walk.
Yeah.
You know, and whether it be a long trail, short trail, skinny trail, wide trail, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's just a trail that we're gonna have to walk and see what it looks like. Because it's uncharted territory. You know, it's ever been. So
And speaking of the future and, you know, what it may hold, we are living in a time right now where even though our stages are dark, advocacy on behalf of the Black community and the arts has increased tenfold.
Yeah.
What is your advice, or let me actually switch that. What do you think the responsibility is for Black artists to advocate for themselves? And then on top of that, to help our non-Black allies help us.
Right. I think, which is wild because I had this realization myself. I think the responsibility for Black performers is just to be and don't be afraid to speak. You know, it's so easy to say. It's so easy to say, just speak up. If you don't feel heard, speak.
Right.
If you feel you're being overshadowed, speak. But in that moment, it's so just to find that courage and that fire to go, hey, I don't know, or
Right.
I'm uncomfortable, or I feel, you know, this way. But I think that is the new responsibility. We have, like you said, an insane amount of support from all sides.
Right.
But, you know, it's a little daunting to stand in that because it's a lot. You know, now it's almost like no one was for you now. Everybody's for you. So it's like, oh God, you know, how do you deal with that and how do you process that? But I think that that might be another responsibility, just letting that happen. I have just a moment that still rings in my mind. Hopefully this person watches this. But I worked at a summer camp, and I had a small injury to my shoulder. And I was like, I'm fine, it's going to be fine. And just this person, my director at that time, he was just like, I get that you feel okay, but one, your shoulder looks a little weird. And two, let us help you.
Yeah.
Let us, you know, guide you and help you. And it's so, hearing someone say that for the first time is like, it's like everything you know has just been erased. Someone is literally wanting to help you.
Yeah.
So you have to open that. You have to open the door. You have no choice to. You know, if you continue to keep the door closed, you know, one, you're not moving anywhere, and two, what's the difference? So I think that the two responsibilities are, you know, speak and be heard.
Yeah.
Let yourself be willing to be heard.
Yeah.
So, and to answer your questions.
You did.
Sorry,
that was great.
Yeah, sorry.
There's two kind of final questions here I want to wrap us up on. The first one being, what is your hope for our industry in regards to racial equity in the performing arts?
Just a simple phrase, just to be. You know, we have been before, but now in these times where people are saying there needs to be more, just to live in that,
Right.
and you know, have a comfort of living in that, having that opportunity to be, and I mean, of course, I'd love to see more people of color, and not just Black people, you know, of all colors, but I think it just goes back to my training and education and my shows that I got to do in college and as a younger performer, just having the opportunity to be seen as a performer.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, we look at Broadway and it's like, oh man, this performer is so great. And it's like, or we say a name. And until you know, or we say it's Norm Lewis, this black guy,
Right.
who did Phantom. Until we say specifically what it is, people just know them as a performer.
Right.
And I want that to just be the one thing that is the foundation, just being, and then going from there.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
My final question I have for you, and I want to harken back to something you mentioned earlier in the interview when it came to you in the classroom and students being able to see themselves on stage. That's something that we really believe heavily here at DSM is that power. We've seen what that power looks like and how it can really influence younger Black and brown students to really pursue a career in this industry. What advice do you have for younger Black and brown students who want to enter this sector, knowing that this is a time that is crazy for all of us, a pandemic on top of the social injustices that we're seeing and continuing to see? What advice do you have for them moving forward?
Almost three things, really. One, I would have to say, above all else, above anything, do the work. Just do the work. It's no matter what part of theater, whether it be administrative, performing, anything, there is work to be done. And if you see yourself being able to do it and you have the drive and you have the want, do it. You have to consistently and constantly do the work. And letting that be your foundation. Not being a workhorse, because we can get there. But being able to have that drive and that energy to constantly do the work. After that, be a good person.
Love that one.
Be a good person. There was of course, we write on posters at the end of shows, and I did that. And a good friend of mine, I'll say, she was a professor, but she wrote a phrase on my poster that I will forever remember, and I love saying it, but I don't know if I should say it here. But she just wrote, "Don't be an asshole," because it's
good advice.
It's great advice, and it goes along with just being a good person. Just like you have bad days, everyone else has bad days. And especially in terms of being a Black actor and, carrying that weight of being a Black person, walking into a room of you don't know what, you kind of have to go in with a clean slate and leaving everything behind and knowing that you are a performer and you have to stand in that. And nothing else matters. I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to do what I can do best and let that be. So I think, again, just being a good person. But there's one more, and of course it slipped my mind. I don't know. Just doing the work, being a good person, and don't be a bad person.
That's great advice.
It's a crazy industry, but it's so worth it. If you get the pleasure and the enjoyment out of just performing and telling a story, I think that it's worth it. The long nights, the long days, the low pay, the backlash, all of it. I think it's worth it if you truly enjoy the art of it all. So,
well, Nik, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your light in our Dallas community. We so need it now more than ever, and we're so glad that you're here and you're a part of our community. We won't let you go now, so no moving back.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate your time being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.